Hallelujah. Well, praise God. If you want to turn over your Bibles to the book of Esther, we're going to talk about something a little bit. Esther takes place in the country of Persia, and Persia is present-day Iran. So when you understand that Esther is taking place in Iran, and guess what is center stage on our news today? Iran. And I was putting this together. Excuse me just a second. Worship was so good this morning. Praise you, Lord. Thank you. So Esther talks about this event that's coming up in just about just a few more days, and that is the Feast of Purim. The Feast of Purim. Purim is a word that in the language of the Persians in that day meant lots, casting lots. And so it's named because it was casting of lots by Haman that determined what day that was precipitous to annihilate all the Jews, to kill every one of them. And while I don't want to go into the entire story of the book of Esther, most of you have read it. If you haven't read it, in fact, I would encourage you to read it again, because what's happening in the book of Esther is happening has happened over and over and over again in history, and will happen again. It's a very interesting book. It shows how God, even though it appears like he's nowhere, the God is not mentioned anywhere in the entire book, but he works behind the scenes. And if nothing else, that should comfort us to the place where we realize that even though we don't feel him, even though we don't see him, even though we don't know he's there, he's still there. And even though it doesn't look like he's doing anything, trust me, he's doing things underneath the surface that you know nothing about. And that's the book of Esther, because all the while they think they're going to die. And so they end up being successful, to the point where everybody in the kingdom wanted to become a Jew, or many people wanted to become Jews. They were converting like crazy, because they started seeing God work on behalf of these people. Pattern is prophecy. I will say that again in the sermon, but I wanted to get it into your psyche so you can understand this. You ought to put this on your refrigerator somewhere, maybe. Pattern is prophecy. So we start seeing some things here. So they succeed, and they rise up and they defend themselves. And because they defended themselves, they ended up, being victorious. They killed a lot of people that day. A lot of Persians died that day, but a lot of them converted as well. And so for 2 days they fought. They're in Shushan, the capital. They did this for 2 days, and outside of Shushan, they only did it 1 day. But in Shushan, the capital, they did it 2 days. And they hanged Haman and his 10 sons. Well, they hanged Haman, but they killed his 2 sons when they were killing everybody in the city. They ended up killing his 2 sons, and then after they did this, the king Ahasuerus comes up to his queen Esther, Hadassah in Hebrew. And he came up to his queen and he says, "Is there anything else that I can do for you?" You have to have the kingdom. And she said, "Oh, that Haman's 10 sons would be hanged." We'll look at that in just a little bit. But put that into your little mind and hold on to that. So Esther chapter 9, we have the establishment of this Feast of Purim. Feast of Purim. So Ephesians chapter 9, starting in verse 22, and we're going to read down through the end of the chapter. Starting in verse 22, as the days wherein the Jews rested from their enemies, and the month which was turned unto them from sorrow to joy, and from mourning into a good day, that they should make them days of feasting and joy. I'm sorry, I should have went to 20. I'm sorry. I started in 22. I should have meant in 20. But we'll go back to verse 20. And Mordecai wrote these things and sent letters unto all the Jews that were in all the provinces of King Ahasuerus, both nigh and far, to establish this among them, that they should keep the 14th day of the month of Adar, and the 15th day of the same. What happens in the skies on the 14th and the 15th day of the month? Anybody know? A full moon. On God's calendar, a full moon always is on the 14th or the 15th. If you look up and you see a full moon, it's either the 14th or the 15th of God's calendar. Every month. All right? Regardless of what your Gregorian calendar says, it's the 14th or 15th of God's calendar. Verse 22, and the days wherein the Jews rested from their enemies, and the month which was turned unto them from sorrow to joy, and from mourning unto a good day, that they should make them days of feasting and joy, and of sending portions one to another, and gifts to the poor. And the Jews undertook to do as they had begun, and as Mordecai had written unto them. Because Haman, the son of Hammedatha, the Agagite, the enemy of all the Jews, had devised against the Jews to destroy them, and had cast pur, that is, the lot, to consume them and to destroy them. But when Esther came before the king, he commanded by letters that his wicked service, which he devised against the Jews, should return upon his own head, and that he and his sons should be hanged on the gallows. Wherefore they call these days Purim, and the name of Pur, after the name of Pur. Therefore, for all of these words of this letter, and of that which they had seen concerning this matter, and which had come unto them, the Jews ordained and took upon them, and upon their seed, and upon all such as joined themselves unto them. That's you and I. We are grafted in. So we are those that have joined ourselves to them. We are grafted in. Are you following me here? So this is in our Bibles. This is not something that somebody decided they would make this holiday up somewhere. This is in our Bibles, that this is a holiday that was set aside for us as well. All right, let's go on. So as it should not fail that they would keep these 2 days according to their writing and according to their appointed time every year, and that those days should be remembered and kept throughout every generation, every family, every province, and every city, and that these days of Purim should not fail from among the Jews, nor the memorial of them perish from their seed. Then Esther the queen, the daughter of Abihail, and Mordecai the Jew, wrote with all authority to confirm the second letter of Purim. And he sent letters unto all the Jews to the 127 provinces of the kingdom of Ahasuerus, with words of peace and truth, to confirm these days of Purim in the times appointed, according to Mordecai the Jew and Esther the queen had joined them, and as they had decreed for themselves and for their seed the matters of the fastings and their cry. And the decree of Esther confirmed these matters of Purim, and it was written in the book. Wow. I wonder how many times people have read that in church services around the country. All right. So there are some in the Messianic group as well as out there in the Christian world that have they've come up with reasons to not celebrate Purim. So I'm going to talk about the reasons that many people have come up with. May not have all the reasons, but I'll have some of them. One of them is that, oh, this is a Jewish holiday. It's about a Jewish war. It's about a Jewish victory. It has nothing to do with me. Well, it has everything to do with us, because if they had been annihilated, they had not been successful in this, then there would be no Yeshua. Because you can bet when the Haman wasn't just looking for the people that were living in Persia, he was looking for those that had been left behind in Jerusalem after Nebuchadnezzar left. He wasn't going to stop until every single Jew. It was the final solution. That reminds you of another time when the final solution was cocked up in somebody's mind. So I think that pretty much does some things there. The next one is that many Messianics among the Hebrew Roots organization, they believe that we shouldn't honor Purim because, well, after all, it's not one of the 7 feasts that are mandated in Leviticus. So since it's not one of the 7 feasts, just like Hanukkah is not one of the 7 feasts, then we shouldn't celebrate it. Okay? Another reason that they say that they don't celebrate it is that Purim is corrupted. That over the years, Purim has just basically become another Halloween. And that they literally encourage people to get drunker than drunk. And those things, the drunkenness comes out of the Talmud. It is a rabbinical addition to the holiday. Nothing in here talks about getting drunk except for Ahasuerus, the king, and he got drunk in his party at the first of the book. And so many your word of faith, your people that are messianics and into the Hebrew Roots movement, they will say, well, it's been so corrupted that we don't want to be part of that. So I'm going to talk about some reasons that we should celebrate it, why Christians should celebrate it, why people who believe in Yeshua should celebrate it. Number one, as long as a celebration or a holiday does not violate Torah, there's nothing wrong with having holidays or celebrations. I know there are a lot of Hebrew roots people that don't want to celebrate birthdays because, birthdays are pagan. Well, if it doesn't go against Torah, then celebrate your birthday. As long as you're not going against Torah, as long as you're not going against the instructions of God, then celebrate. Celebrate. You can celebrate anniversaries. Your wedding anniversary. I dare say if you forget your wedding anniversary, you're probably going to be in hot water if you're the husband of the group. The wife seems to be able to forget her anniversary, and that's fine. Although not too many women do forget it. And so, as long as it doesn't violate Torah, it's okay. Hanukkah is a prime example of that. Hanukkah is not listed in the 5 books of Moses. You will be hard to find it anywhere except for in the New Testament, unless you turn to a book called the Maccabees. Then you read about Hanukkah. But the New Testament specifically states that Yeshua was in the temple at Hanukkah during the Feast of Dedication. Well, dedication is Hanukkah in Hebrew. And so it's obvious that just because it wasn't one of the 7 feasts, Yeshua celebrated it and literally preached messages using that as a backdrop for his messages and for his sermons and for his miracles and for his declarations. So I think that's a valid reason why we can do it. Number 2, because it's a good probability that Yeshua celebrated Purim. Now, it doesn't say that he does, like it does that he celebrated Hanukkah. But because he celebrated Hanukkah, it tends to get me to a place where I can think that possibly he also celebrated Purim. And why do I say that? Well, because he was Jewish. he was from the tribe of Judah. His mother and father were Jewish. And it would seem a little out of place if he just didn't do it. Now, there may have been a year or 2 that he didn't do it. I don't know. But I think that quite possibly he remembered Purim himself, because it was he that brought the deliverance in the first place. It was he that was working behind the scenes in Esther's life anyway. And so it was kind of like he gets to experience it all over again. You try to get into Jesus and Yeshua's mind during these festivals and these holidays. He's reliving doing for the people. It's just beautiful when you start thinking about how Yeshua must have thought about these holidays, because he wasn't looking back and just trying to reenact. No, he was looking back and remembering what his part was in every part of that. And he got enjoyment out of seeing other people still celebrating those events. It's true that Yeshua rejected rabbinical traditions and laws that had the effect of nullifying the Father's Torah. But he did not go against anything that did not nullify the Father's Torah. There were many things that the rabbis was teaching that he did not say anything against. He wasn't completely 100% against all rabbinical teachings. There were some that were true to Torah. They may have been few and far and in between, I don't know. But the parts that nullified, or at least had the effect of nullifying the Father's Torah, that's the ones he was against. Are you following me here? Okay. Number 3, Purim sets up as a pattern. And pattern is prophecy. We are going to see Purim show up over and over and over and over again. In fact, every year during the time of Purim, the Jewish people always, their antennas go way up, because it is a sign for them. Now, I want to talk about the story of Purim a little bit. The story of Purim starts all the way back into the book of 2 Kings, chapter 25. Let's just go over to 2 Kings, chapter 25. That's the last chapter in Kings. So if you go to 1 Chronicles and back up one page, you should get it. 2 Kings, chapter 25, starting in verse 1. And it came to pass in the 9th year of his reign, in the 10th month, in the 10th day of the month, that Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, came, he and all his host, against Jerusalem, and pitched against it. And they built forts against it round about. And the city was besieged unto the 11th year of King Zedekiah. And on the 9th day of the 4th month, the famine prevailed in the city, and there was no bread for the people of the land. And the city was broken up, and all the men of war fled by night by the way of the gate between two walls, which is by the king's garden. Now the Chaldees were against the city round about, and the king went the way toward the plain. And the army of the Chaldees pursued after the king, and overtook him in the plains of Jericho, and all his army were scattered from him. So they took the king, and brought him up to the king of Babylon, to Riblah, and they gave judgment upon him. And they slew the sons of Zedekiah before his eyes, and put out the eyes of Zedekiah, and bound him with fetters of brass, and carried him to Babylon. And in the 5th month, on the 7th day of the month, which is the 19th year of the king Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, came Nebuzaradan, captain of the guard, a servant of the king of Babylon, unto Jerusalem, and he burnt the house of the Lord, house of Jehovah, and the king's house, and all the houses of Jerusalem, and every great man's house burnt he with fire. And all the army of the Chaldees that were with the captain of the guard broke down the walls of Jerusalem round about. Now the rest of the people that were left in the city, and the fugitives that fell away to the king of Babylon, with the remnant of the multitude, did Nebuzaradan, the captain of the guard, carry away. But a captain of the guard left of the poor of the land to be vine dressers and husbandmen. And the pillars of brass that were in the house of the Lord, and the bases, and the brazen sea that was in the house of the Lord, did the Chaldees break in pieces, and carried the brass of them to Babylon. And the pots, and the shovels, and the snuffers, and the spoons, and all the vessels of brass wherewith they ministered, took they away. And the fire pans, and the bowls, and such things as were of gold, in gold and of silver. In silver the captain of the guard took away. The 2 pillars, one sea, and the bases which Solomon had made for the house of the Lord, the brass of all these vessels was without weight. The height of the one pillar was 18 cubits, and the chapiter upon it was brass, and the height of the chapiter 3 cubits, and the wreathen work and pomegranates upon the chapiter round about, all of the brass, and like unto these had the 2nd pillar with wreathen work. And the captain of the guard took Sariah, the chief priest, and Zephaniah, the 2nd priest, and the 3 keepers of the door. And out of the city he took an officer that was set over the men of war, and 5 men of them that were in the king's presence, which were found in the city, and the principal scribe of the host, which ministered to the people of the land, and 80 men of the people of the land that were found in the city. And Nebuzaradan, captain of the guard, took these and brought them to the king of Babylon, to Riblah. And the king of Babylon smote them and slew them at Riblah in the land of Hamath. So Judah was carried away out of their land. Judah was carried away out of their land. This was the Babylonian captivity that was prophesied by the prophet Jeremiah, that 70 years they would be exiled from their land until the land got its Sabbath rest. During this time, there was a young man that was taken along with other people. And this young man's name was Daniel. And Daniel came, and he came with these people. And Nebuchadnezzar allowed the Jewish people to settle along the river Euphrates. He allowed them to build houses. He allowed them to build centers of learning and also centers of worship. He allowed them to do that. So Nebuchadnezzar then dies. His son takes over. His son then eventually dies. And Nebuchadnezzar's grandson, Belshazzar, is now over the Babylon. Belshazzar, he has a feast. And instead of being like his grandfather that had respect to the Jewish people and their things, he had disdain for them, and he went and got all of the holy items, all the golden cups and all of the brass and all that wasn't destroyed in the raid. He brought them into, and he had himself a party. Parties in the Bible tend to end bad. And while he was drinking from the holy things of God, a finger, a hand, came out into the air, just a hand. His hand appears. If I could just somehow, just have my hand out here, and a finger extends from that hand, and over on the wall, this finger starts writing the words. And it says that Belshazzar's knees started smacking together. It scared the living daylights out of him. I'm sure he had to change his underwear. You see a hand floating in midair and writing upon a wall. Tell me that don't shake you up. He brings in his wise man and he says, tell me what's written on the wall. I can't read it. It's not written in my language. They couldn't do it. Then the queen comes up and says, oh, there's a guy. I remember. The queen mother, she remembers, right? I remember there's this guy. He's old now. He's not old. He's an older guy now. But man, he has interpreted dreams in the past, and the Spirit of God is in him. You go get him, and I see if he can read it. And so they go get Daniel. And the king Belshazzar says, I will give you great riches. I will make you so powerful in this land. He said, keep it to yourself. Keep it to yourself. He said, don't worry about it. I'll tell you what it means. Mene, mene, tekel, upharsin. He said, many, your kingdom is put into it. Your kingdom has been put into it. There's no more end. There's no more kingdom. Tekel, you are weighed in the balance and found wanting, lacking. Perez, which is the root word for upharsin. Perez, the kingdom is divided and given to the Medes and the Persians. The king goes, oh, give him all kinds of honors. He's a great guy. King goes to bed that night, and in the night, the Medes and the Persians, they were already there. And without a struggle, without a war, without a fight, they conquered Babylon. The Medes were led by Darius the First. The Persians were led by Cyrus the Great. Cyrus is the one that helped build the temple, remember? He helped them come back after 70 years of captivity. But 200 years before this event, 200 years before this, Isaiah, this is how important the book of Esther actually is. Isaiah is prophesying 200 years before this whole thing starts coming together. And Isaiah says this over in Isaiah. Let me find over here in Isaiah, and we'll go to Isaiah, the 45th chapter. Isaiah 45, and we're going to look at verse 1 and then also verse 13. Isaiah 45, verse 1. Thus says Yehovah to his anointed, to Cyrus. I just like that. The anointed is also can be translated Mashiach. To my Messiah. Now, this is a pagan king that God called a Messiah. To my anointed Cyrus. He is my shepherd. Okay, wait a minute. Okay, hang on. I backed up too far. It says, whose right hand I have holden to subdue nations before him. In other words, I have created you to be a Messiah to subdue nations. I'm going to use you as a deliverer for my people. And I will loose the loins of kings to open before him the two-leaved gates, and the gates shall not be shut. Let's go on down to verse 13. I have raised him up in righteousness, and I will direct all his ways. He shall build my city. God said this 200 years. Amazing. America's only been around for 250 some years. Isn't this amazing? 200 years. Pattern is prophecy. Are you going to hear? Oh, yeah. He will build my city, and he shall let go of my captives. He's prophesying this before they're even taken captive, that there will become a deliverer to let the captives go. Not for price nor reward, says the Yehovah Sabaoth, the Lord of hosts. I just think that is interesting. He said he won't even want to charge anybody for it. In fact, he will take out of his own money and he will support it himself. He was going to build a city. Amazing. Sometime after Cyrus dies, I don't know how far this is. Now before I go there, we know that Cyrus had let the people go back. Not everybody chose to go back to Israel. Not all the Jews decided to go back. Many of them enjoyed the land of Persia. They liked Cyrus. All right, are you following me here? And so there were a lot of people that stayed there in Persia, stayed there in Iran. This is why when you hear Netanyahu speak, while he is vehemently against the Iranian government and their leaders, he has a soft heart for the people, because the Jewish people have history in Iran with the Iranian people. So after Cyrus dies, somewhere along the line, we come up with Ahasuerus. And Ahasuerus, we know the story of Esther. We have Vashti. She doesn't want to come before the king, and so the king gets rid of her. Then we have a beauty pageant and Hadassah. who is called Esther in that country? Because she's hiding her identity. Just like God is, there's so much hidden stuff here. It's unbelievable. She's hiding her Jewish identity. The king doesn't know that he married a Jewish girl. Not that it would have mattered to him, but he didn't know it. And she kept it quiet because Mordecai told her to keep it quiet. And we have Mordecai. And we have Haman. Haman is called an Agagite, which it means that he is from the family of Agag, which takes us back to another story in the Old Testament. I mean, this is linked to so many places in the Bible. It's unbelievable. Takes us back to another story where we have King Saul, who is commanded to kill all the Amalekites, but instead he saves King Agag alive. And so now here is a descendant of King Agag that is in now Iran, Persia, and in power. We know the story. We know that how that they had the revolt there, and the Jewish people were given permission to defend themselves, and they went out and defended themselves. I love what Golda Meir once said. She says, everybody loves a dead Jew. What they hate is a Jew that defends himself. Isn't that interesting? It's amazing, how that when somebody attacks the Jewish people, that then all of us, and then they turn around and fight back. Then suddenly the world is against them. Oh, free Palestine, to the river, to the sea. Well, it was October 7th. They came in there and did one of the most horrific things since the Holocaust. And had that happened in your own backyard, you guarantee you would have been wanting America to just take out that country that just took care of you, that just attacked you. Amazing. Everybody loves a dead Jew. Nobody likes one that defends himself. But these Jews defended themselves, and as a result, they were victorious. And so this whole thing would have been solved if Saul had done what he's supposed to have done in the first place. We wouldn't have had Haman at all. But we have Esther because of Saul. We have the book of Esther because of the disobedience of a king by the name of King Saul, Shaul. Again, are you beginning to like the Old Testament as much as I do? The amount of intrigue and stuff that goes on is unbelievable. But Esther, the king came after they had killed everybody that was opposing them, and they defended themselves, and they were victorious. They did that on the 14th day, and the king says to Esther, he says, "Is there anything else that you would like?" And she said, "Yes, tomorrow. Tomorrow, let's hang all of his sons, all of Haman's sons." Now, listen, they already killed them. And so why are we hanging them again? For centuries, nobody understood that one little verse right there until 1946. October the 1st, 1946, in Nuremberg, Germany. There were 216 court sessions. It was a military tribunal. And on October the 1st, this tribunal delivered their verdicts that all of these men, there were 11 of them, that they would die by hanging. The punishment for their crimes was not hanging. The punishment that was by law was to be in front of a firing squad. But the tribunal went away from the firing squad and went to hanging. Prior to them hanging, a guy by the name of Herman Gorin committed suicide. It left 10. Because tomorrow is either tomorrow as in the day after today, or tomorrow could be a future date. And when Esther asked that the 10 sons of Haman be killed tomorrow, it was another time when they were going to eradicate all the Jews. And they were trying the people that were instigating this whole thing and part of it. And so 10 men were hanged that day because Queen Esther asked for it. Pattern is prophecy. Just before they went to the gallows, but just before they were hung, Julius Stryker yelled out. Now this is a German man, he's not Jewish, but they know Judaism. And he yells out, Purim, 1946. To understand that, we have to understand one thing. The decree that King Ahasuerus had put forth by the instruction of Haman was this. I'll quote it. To destroy, to kill, and to annihilate all the Jews, end quote. That decree was never nullified. That's why it is still prevalent today, because that decree has never been rescinded. Wow. So you wonder why that people want to kill all the Jews? Because the spirit of Haman, the spirit of Amalek, is still alive and well. And he's still trying to make that decree work. But the Jews have been given permission to arm themselves. And they have a powerful army, thanks largely to the help of the United States of America. They are our strongest ally in the Middle East. So that was Purim 1946. I wonder what other Purims that we are yet to witness. In the end times, there is the number 10 appearing again. In the 10 horns that are talked about not only in Daniel, but also in Revelation. The 10 horns of the beast. Again, we have 10. that will rise up again in opposition to God's people and want to kill, to destroy, and to wipe off the face of the earth the Jewish people. This year, Purim begins on March 2nd or 3rd. What? 3rd, March 3rd. On the evening of March 2nd, which begins March 3rd, there's a full moon. But it's not just a normal full moon, it's a blood red moon. This year! And blood red moons always are omens. You can only have a blood red moon on a full moon. And March 2nd and March 3rd will be the evening March 2nd will be a full moon. So the evening March 2nd, you can go out there and look at it and see it. If there's no clouds. Just the other day, the 19th of February, 2 days ago, in Iran, there was a 5.5 earthquake, 5.5 on the Richter scale, an earthquake just 2 days ago. Don't tell me something isn't going on in Iran right now. That by itself would be nothing. But right now, in the waters that are close enough to Iran to strike, there is the carrier, the Abraham Lincoln, and the carrier Gerald Ford. You can't make this up. Lincoln and Ford. Where was Lincoln? Lincoln and Ford are connected. You can't make this up. These aircraft carriers have, and again the bases that are nearby, there are 50 fighter jets. 50. Maybe even more by now. There are F-35s. They are the lightning. They're the lightning ships, the lightning ones. You have F-22s. Those are the Raptors. We have F-16s. Those are the Falcons. Not only that, but we have surveillance aircraft, the AWACs. Not just one, but 2 or 3. Now, this is what we know. This isn't what is doing that we don't know. Because I guarantee you the military doesn't tell you everything, and neither will the president. And these surveillance aircraft, they were able to go over and to get all kinds of information that they need to get. Not only that, but we have drones. We have the MQ-4 Triton drones that are sent over to get information. We will know where every person is at any particular point that we want to know who they are and where they're at. If I was the Ayatollah right now, if I was the president of Iran, I would be shaking in my knees would be knocking together like Belshazzar's was. Because the finger of God is all over this. Because just this last week, Iran refused the agreement that President Trump sent to them. And Trump had already given them a deadline. We either negotiate this agreement or it's curtains. And he's already promised the Iranian people who are demonstrating that help was on its way. Don't think for a moment that this is escaping the eyes and the attention of Russia. And I guarantee you that Russia has got an armed force out there as well. When I was in the military, we were off the coast of Oman, over there, there by the you got the Suez Canal up there, and we were at the mouth of this over there off the coast of Oman, and we were there because there was some arguments over between two other countries, and as soon as we got ships over there, we found out that there was also Russian presence there. They were there to make sure we didn't intervene, and we were there to make sure they didn't intervene and let the two smaller countries work it out between themselves. I was standing on the deck one day, and all of a sudden 4 submarines surfaced around my ship. We're an oiler. They surfaced to let us know that they could have blown us up. That's why they surfaced. And the sailors got up on top of the submarines and waved at us. And I waved back and I said, please don't shoot today. I don't want to be in a war. This is all while the Vietnam War was going on. This is I don't know if you remember back that far, but this was the gas prices. They had the lines at the gas tank and everything else because of this whole thing. Okay. All right. I was in the middle of it. We had orders, and guess what our orders were? You do not have orders from the Pentagon to be here, and we will disavow anything that you say that we sent you there. In other words, they will say that we disobeyed orders because they did not want the Congress to know that we were there. Military has to work around Congress because Congress can mess things up so quick. It's unbelievable. And they like Skip just said, they talk, and loose lips sink ships, and they get people killed. So they don't tell everybody what they're doing because they're trying to keep us sailors and us military guys alive. Wow, so a blood moon, earthquake. You have all this going on with the proposal being rejected, and this military might that's over there. This country, Iran, is also known by another name in the Bible. Elam, E-L-A-M. We first hear of Elam all the way back with Abraham. This is the first World War, was with Elam. Chedorlaomer, one of the kings that was going against these other ones. And what did they do? They took Lot. And Abraham took some men, 315 guys out of his household, and fought against these kings and recovered Lot and his family And then we have the story of how the Melchizedek met him, right? After the slaughter of the kings. Melchizedek come and meet him after the slaughter of the kings. You can't make this up. The first world war was with Abraham, with Isaac and Jacob, with the Jewish people. And guess what? Ezekiel chapters 38 and 39 talks about the Gog and Magog war, World War III. And these are the countries that are the present-day countries that are listed: Russia, Turkey, Libya, Ethiopia, and Persia, Elam, which is Iran. We are in the final microseconds, milliseconds. I don't know, the smallest amount of time you can possibly imagine, and that's where we're at. Literally, our next breath could be in the air. Are we close? Are we close to this? I believe we are. Jeremiah 49, 34 through 39. God will break the bow of Elam and scatter them and restore the fortunes back to the people. We're about to see that happening. If this was all it was, I think I might be able to rationalize some of that away. But listen, Trump mirrors Cyrus. In fact, in Israel, they have a coin with Cyrus's picture on one side and Trump's picture on the other. They view him as a present-day Cyrus. And what do they want to do? They want to build a temple. And who is going to help them? A builder, a guy who all his life built hotels and buildings. They want to build they want to build a tabernacle. Jared Kushner, his son-in-law, brokered a peace deal called the Abraham Accords. And now they have a board of peace. When they say peace and safety, then comes sudden destruction. That's Yeshua saying that. We are in the very last days. Not only that, but a red heifer ashes are already ready. I just talked about it last week. I think it was last week about how that we had a rabbi that sprinkled a priest rather, not a rabbi, but a priest actually sprinkled the ashes upon another Jewish man for the first time in over 2,000 years. There's too many things coming together. The temple is ready to be built. They have the cornerstone. They have everything. They can build it in just a matter of months. And there is a fault line right underneath the Temple Mount. and also the mountain of across the way there. Wow, interesting. So, what did Yeshua say when we see all these things happening? Look up. Look up, for your redemption draws near. But not only that, he said, we must occupy till he comes. And so This is a time that we should be busy for the kingdom, populating heaven. That's what we should be doing, populating heaven. Through the social media, I have been able to make friends with several people across all over the place. In 2 weeks, we are going to have a special speaker here. And I am so excited about getting him to come because I didn't think I could. But he agreed to come to our fellowship and to our internet church. And so I'm asking you to get people here and get people online. Get people to watch. Get people to tune in. 2 weeks from today, on March the 7th, he's going to be teaching us some very simple methods for evangelism. He puts it in such a way and makes it so easy. Do you know that the majority of Christians have never, ever led another person to the Lord? Majority of them have never done that. And maybe you already have your own evangelism way of doing things, and that's fine. But I want to guarantee you he's going to come up with some things that you have not thought of. And you're going to say, oh, I can do that. I'm not going to tell you who it is. I want you to be excited, and I want you to be ready for him when he comes. But I do want to get the message out because we need to be busy for the Master. I picked the songs today on purpose, especially the last one. Send me. Here am I. Send me. And I'm going to be preaching next week along the same lines as I did today about the urgency of what we have to do. And that God has called us for such a time as this. It is not an accident that you're here. God chose you because you are, of all the people in the centuries, are able to stand against the onslaughts of the enemy that he will unleash on this planet, because he has prepared you, and he has prepared you before you were even born to be here at this very moment in time. So lose your fear, lose your intrepidation, lose your excuses. God placed you here for such a time as this. And if I perish, I perish. Amen. Let's all stand. Thank you, Lord. Hallelujah. Ivalecha Yahweh v'yishmerecha. Ya'er Yahweh panav elecha v'yichanecha. Yisa Yahweh panav elecha v'yasem l'ka shalom. The Lord will bless you, and he will keep you. The Lord will make his face to shine upon you, and he'll be gracious to you. The Lord will lift his countenance upon you, and he will give you peace. Amen. Amen.